How have you been?
I'm really good. I'm really, really good. David, welcome back to the Man Podcast. You've had a huge life experience, would we say,
Yeah.
that I have been extremely interested in for a long time. So much so, actually, that I pretty much convinced a friend to go to Peru to do it, and then I pulled out, and they done it. So you're my second pal. You're my second friend to do it. For those that are listening, again, welcome back to the Man Podcast. I'm Thomas. This is David. You remember him from the past. And David's been away on an adventure and tried. So I want to kind of clear up as well before we get stuck into this that the use of drugs or this form of medicine or what other different kind of name you would like to give it. I don't know if I would go as far as saying I recommend people go and do it. I recommend if you're wanting to try certain things in your own life, you should have the right to do it. However, I would recommend doing it in a way that is safe, controlled, potentially even researched, or just completely recommended by a medical professional. Do you think that'll cover me, David? If anybody goes away and tries this and then...
Yeah, we are not medical professionals. Anything we say here is just craziness and hearsay, and we are experimenting on our own lives. And don't take anything as advice, please.
Yeah, so right, that's that part covered. That's a total disclaimer. I do think this will get a lot of people listening to it because it is something that's far more... I don't want to say the word. I don't want to say popular, but it's definitely spoken about a lot more, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like it had kind of a peak like 7 years ago, and I'm not sure if it's been growing since. But now that I've done it, obviously that's like all I'm thinking about and all I'm seeing. So I don't know, but apparently there are more places doing it. So we didn't still say what the topic is, which is just ayahuasca, which is a drug slash medicine that people in the Amazon have been taking for about at least 1,000 years, which is proven. And yeah, the Western world is getting more familiar with it. More places are experimenting with it. More studies are coming out on its effects of it curing depression, OCD, PTSD, loads of mental health issues. And yeah.
Yeah. So, right, the way we'll talk through this is I'd like to find, so it's a drink, right? You drink it.
Yeah.
So the drink, ayahuasca, do you know why it gets called medicine? I don't.
I don't know if it's traditionally called medicine or just in the Western world now.
Oh, okay.
But when the shamans are singing, they are calling it medicine as well. So maybe we should assume that it's traditionally called that. And probably because it helps you heal from trauma and digest things from your past. And previously, whenever I read about or heard about anyone else's ayahuasca journey, I was just like, these people are just a little bit crazy, at least. And I never knew how to explain it to other people, what we're going to do there. It's just like, yeah, we're going to take some drugs and see what happens. But now that I have done it, how I could describe it is, it helps you remember things that you might have buried too deep to remember consciously. And you can look back at these things and think about them and handle them and treat them without bias or prejudice, or with just like a clean slate, like objectively, almost from the outside.
Okay.
So I've done loads of therapy as well, and I've got answers to questions that I never figured out through normal therapy, even though I got great results with therapy as well.
I'm sure I've read. Okay, so the first time I ever heard about it is I heard about DMT, and I heard about I believe it was on Joe Rogan the first time I ever heard about it, and they were actually talking about like smoking DMT and how it like sends you to like the center of the universe. And then after that, I can remember it started to kind of like it grew arms and legs. Like you found out that like you can go do like a shaman sort of ceremony in Peru, where like and I remember reading about this, and then I can remember I watched a video on YouTube, and it was called, I'm sure it was just called like Mother Ayahuasca.
Okay.
And then I remember, do you know, I can't remember his name now. London Real. I can't remember what his actual name is.
Brian Rose, yeah.
That's it. Brian Rose.
Rose.
I watched his video about doing it, and I can also remember. I remember watching his video, and then the conclusions that he kind of came up with at the end. I can remember that putting me off as well, because I can remember being like,
putting you off.
Yeah, because I think what I was originally trying to solve, I did already know the answer to, and I just thought
Okay.
that like ayahuasca would like I don't know if it would. I don't know. I don't really know because I've never done it, so I don't know what I would get from it at all. And this is maybe why I'm still very interested to try it. I don't know how my family would feel about it. I think I've said to them I would try it, but I don't know. I don't know.
Why does it
But
matter how they feel?
that's true. They might just disown me. Yeah?
I don't know.
Nah, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. They wouldn't. They know I'm
My
kidding.
family was not happy, by the way.
Really?
I was brought up in a family that was like super anti-drug, and actually my father, who I have no contact with and have never had any contact with, he's an idiot and a marijuana addict, and or overconsumer. I don't know if addict exists with marijuana, but because of that, I have like a very negative view on drugs always, and I've never even really done any drugs.
Yeah.
So this was out of my comfort zone for sure, but it was very very beneficial.
Right. I think what we do, David. I think we talk about leaving London. You get on a plane. What happened from the journey as soon as you sat down on that plane seat? Just talk us through that.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about the requirements for it, which started like 3 weeks before, which includes not having anything remotely fun or nice in your diet for 3 weeks. So no caffeine, no alcohol, no salt, no fat, which is just retarded from like you know that people are supposed to eat fat and salt, and you basically die if you sustain it for long enough and do well enough. But I did it for 3 weeks anyway. So basically, the biggest challenge was getting to Lima and figuring out what to eat for the day before going to the jungle and where to get boiled potatoes with boiled chicken without any seasoning and oil from. So that's what we ate for 2 days. 2 days there. We took boiled potatoes and boiled chicken on the plane with us. It was fun. And we spent a day in Lima just looking around, and then flew into the jungle the day after. So there's like a capital for ayahuasca, which is Iquitos, in like deep in the jungle, and we went into the other area because that's where our retreat was. That's where we found a shaman that seemed reliable and could do the time that we wanted to do. So it was wild. You went into the city, it's like 300,000 people, it's a bigger city, and then you get on a boat and then you go down the river pretty far down and you end up in like a village of a few hundred people where people there in that tribe start doing ayahuasca. Guess at what age?
I honestly don't. I'm going to guess it's young, but I don't have a clue.
At 9 years old.
No way.
Yeah, yeah. They start around 9, 10 years old. It's insane. And then we had like a briefing day. We hung out. We were located in a tombo. It's called. It's like our little hut, where if you were in the middle of the garden of the retreat, you could see me poop on the toilet in our house because we had no bathroom door. So that was fun as well. And the whole structure was Monday, Tuesday, ayahuasca both days, and then Wednesday a day off, Thursday, Friday ceremonies again, and then Saturday you leave. So that was it.
So you had like a
And
full week
then
there. You had
yeah,
like a
6 days.
full
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
right. Yeah. And the experience itself, basically, I'm not sure. I can only tell you the same thing I said on Instagram. First day, I basically the whole setup is there's like 8 people who are doing long term, 7, 8 of them. Long term means they're staying there for like 1 to 3 months. In the first week and the last week of their stay, they have to do ayahuasca 4 times. In between, they don't have to do it at all. But these long term people have to pretty much meditate and just stay internally focused the whole time. So they can't talk to anyone. They can't read anything not ayahuasca or therapy related. They can't listen to anything. They can't use the internet. So that's pretty intense. And obviously, we had no connection with these people because they didn't talk to anyone. They can only do ayahuasca and then think about it in their house, basically. And there were 3 other guys. It's pretty wild. There were 2 other guys that came at the same time as us. One from New York, one from Australia, and the New Yorker was 64 years old, and we made really good friends with both of them because what you live through creates like a special bond. It's the whole thing is craziness and feels like magic, and you build friendships really easily. And that means that it was about like 15 of us in a whole. We called it Maloka, this big round thing where the ceremony took place. Three shamans, four of us short term, and about eight of us long term. And we are in a circle shape. The three shamans, after, let's say, you drink the ayahuasca. An hour later, the three shamans start singing. They don't sing like verbal things. They just like, I don't know, just weird songs. And after 2 hours of singing, roughly, they start going around and sing individually at you, at your mat. Everyone has a mat, a bucket to throw up in, and a blanket. And half an hour after the first shaman, the second shaman starts going around as well. And when they both get back to the starting position, the ceremony ends after that by like 10 minutes. So the whole thing should last about 4 to 6 hours, starting from 8 p.m. That's it. So first day, we drank from a tall shot glass, and I got like 60% of the shot glass worth of ayahuasca. What I read online was that it tastes like diarrhea mixed with burnt tire, but which I told my shaman as well. Huh? Think what?
I said yum.
Oh,
sounds good.
yeah. Before drinking it, I told the shaman as well. I asked if it's true, to which the response was, "Has anyone tried burnt tire mixed with diarrhea?" So, in reality, it tastes more like, I think, some like rotten fruit mixed with tree bark.
Okay.
Which is still not ideal, but it's not nearly as traumatizing. It's a deep purple, thick concoction. So basically, the whole drink is at least two plants mixed together. One is what contains the DMT, and the other one is what prevents your stomach acid from breaking down the DMT so it can actually get into your system. And how it's different from DMT itself is that when you smoke DMT, or inject, it gets into your bloodstream very, very quickly through your lungs or it's already in your bloodstream if you inject it, which means that you get a quicker response as well. So it's like, that's why it's said that it sends you to like the center of the universe, because it's very visual and it's very, very intense, but it's for a very short time. And it's like very out of the world experience. Whereas ayahuasca, because you eat it, drink it, it takes longer to absorb, longer to kick in, longer to get out of your system as well. And it's just a much longer experience and not as extreme. Really extreme though still. And basically, they cook these two plants down into a thick liquid, and it's a purplish liquid. Every shaman prepares their own brew differently, but the two main ingredients are the two plants I said, and you drink it, and it kicks in about 45 to 60 minutes. And the other thing that people know about ayahuasca is that it comes with a lot of purging. That's what, when someone has heard about ayahuasca and you tell them that you're going to do it, they're like, "Oh, you're going to throw up in the jungle?" Yes, because the theory is whenever you come across negative emotions or trauma and you kind of like get rid of it, getting rid of it and getting rid of the bad energy also comes in the form of purging, which can come in as vomiting, as diarrhea, as crying, or yawning, or like air vomiting, which are all pretty disgusting. And everyone's just hoping that they would cry, but most people throw up as well. And basically, you drink the brew, and in 45 to 60 minutes, some people will start throwing up already. And in the first day, nothing happened to me. People started throwing up. I lost my sense of time. You can ask for a bit more until the shamans start going around. When they start going around, you can't ask for more because the ceremony is about to end soon. And I lost my sense of time. I didn't ask for more. I didn't want to be that guy that's like on the first ceremony, "Hey, can I have some more?" So nothing happened to me at all, and I was extremely disappointed. Everyone else having a vomiting party. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting there. It was disappointing. And fortunately, there was another guy that nothing happened to, which made me feel a little bit better. And people said it happens to few people, that nothing is experienced on the first time. So second time, they decided to give me a full cup instead of just 60%. Again, nothing happened initially, but I was like, okay, I have to get my money's worth now. So I go up for a little bit more. And as I was waiting for that little bit more and sitting in front of the shamans singing, the singing itself made it kick in. And by the time I drank the extra like third of a cup and got back to my mat, I knew it was a mistake and I probably shouldn't have done it. And as soon as I got back to my mat, I was in like an earthy, dark, and cold black place, and I was getting strangled by vines, which is interesting because ayahuasca itself is a vine, and or ropes, or I don't know, but it genuinely felt like I was gonna die. I couldn't move, like I actually felt the ropes crushing me. Um, if you looked at me, it looked like some kind of exorcism. I was like twisted in every direction, and my body parts kept like twitching, and my muscles were contracting so hard that I thought they were going to tear off the bone, and I just kept getting in twisted positions, and I was really hoping that no one would saw. And at the same time, I hoped that someone would see so they could like help me, because I was at that point sure that I just fucking went to a third world country and overdosed on a shit drug that I don't even know anything about. There's no supervision, there are no doctors. I'm just gonna fucking die here. My mom told me not to do it. I'm sorry, mom. And that went on for a very long time, and I genuinely thought that I was going to die. And I know I'm not selling the whole experience with it, but everything was worth it by the end. So the whole reason I went to Peru to do this whole thing is my grandma is a control freak, my mom is a control freak, and I'm a control freak as well, and I didn't want to be like that with my kids. And that's why I did therapy in the first place, and I've come a long way, and Robin helped me a lot with it, because I used to be an asshole with her as well, to be honest, but she was strong enough to like help me, fortunately. But I knew that with like dynamics with kids where you're kind of meant to be in control, but only to a certain extent, I might not find that sweet spot. And I knew that this whole crushing feeling was somehow related to the control thing, but I had to like really, really deeply understand and come to a conclusion. And I had to believe that if I'm not going to die here, this whole thing is somehow serving me or somehow teaching me. So if I figure out why this crushing thing and dying is happening to me, I would be able to overcome it. And when I realized that this is how people feel around me when I'm in my controlling behavior, and how my kids would grow up feeling if I didn't improve, that's when it kind of like eased a little bit. Feel free to interrupt me anytime, because I feel like I'm just giving a lecture.
No, it's fine. Honestly, it's totally fine, because I've never done it and it's fascinating. And when I've tried speaking with my other friend, he almost finds it hard to verbalize what happened with him. So it's like I'm getting like a really in-depth, like insight into it. So see, this is something I was going to ask, because I don't know if you can just remember it all. Once you done, so on Monday it was 0.6 of a cup, right? So about 60% of a cup. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Monday 60%. Mm-hmm. Tuesday you had the 60% again, and then an extra third.
Full cup plus third.
All right, okay. Mm-hmm. 1 plus third. See, after them, do you get chance to talk to somebody? Do you jot notes down? Do you keep a diary or anything like that?
Yeah. So I have my diary in front of me if I get stuck in anything. And I actually wrote, in the 3 occasions we've done it, I wrote 40 pages. And after every ceremony, or before the ceremony the following day, there's always a chance to sit down, all of us share our experiences, and the shaman listens to us and gives his insight. And I feel like I had one of the most like straightforward experiences, and some people were more confused, some people had like more visuals, some people didn't know what they were meant to have as a takeaway, and they might have found more value in like the shaman's input and like direction. But I also, like, after the experience, I also asked the shaman what he thought I should focus on the ceremony afterwards as well.
Okay, so what sort of things were they saying then? What were the shamans saying to you, to other people?
I mean, for me, as I said, it was pretty straightforward. And maybe I can tell you afterwards that for the last session, he gave me an instruction to like open my heart, which was weird, but eventually it turned out to be the right advice. And with other people, some people wanted to work on different things that the shaman recommended to. For example, some people had like visuals that they didn't know how to interpret, and it's like a little bit of like how you interpret like dreams, which is, again, I'm so non-spiritual that me talking about this sounds so crazy, but after experiencing it, my whole view on spirituality has changed a little. I'm not super spiritual yet, but I just don't know what to think anymore.
Really?
Yeah, about not just spirituality, but like not God or something in the universe, because the whole thing feels like magic. Like again, not medical advice. I think everyone should try it because
It's
it's so
funny.
genuine.
It's funny that like everybody that does try it says like, I think everybody should do this.
Maybe I got lucky with it, but it felt like however much I was suffering in the experience, by the end of it, it was always worth it. And I said it last on Instagram as well, that people are like shocked and they're saying you're really not selling it. I would never want to throw up and whatnot. Like I don't like throwing up, but I was saying that if for this much insight I had to eat my poop or your poop for 13 hours, I would still do it. Not because I'm a poop lover, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go off like I kind of cut you off there as like you said you want to ask anything and I just jumped in to do it. But right, you on your Instagram stories you spoke about like being a control freak. Your grand was you mentioned it there and you said that like the vines felt like that's potentially what like what people feel like they feel restricted with you because you're trying to guide them, like you're trying to like influence how they think, act, do whatever, right? You also mentioned there's like a
Mm-hmm.
judgy side to you.
Mm-hmm.
But you also said on your Instagram stories, like they were the two things that I'll focus on just now. Was there other things that you wanted to go away and work on or look at or experience?
Genuinely, no. These were the two main things: just the judginess and the control freak thing. Yeah,
Okay.
and
So then,
basically, I
oh,
said making peace with myself. Sorry, I went in with intentions as well. I started journaling before going into the experience. And the third thing was making peace with myself and believing that I'm good enough, which I knew somehow was related to the judginess itself. And equally, how I wrote down what I wanted to achieve, I also wrote down what I didn't want to achieve, which was I didn't want to not be materialistic. Not that I'm materialistic, but I didn't want to fall into the other extreme. How you imagine the stereotypical hippie dippy people that they suddenly just move to the jungle and donate everything and they live off like whatever what they grow, peppers in
yeah.
the garden, and they slay their own chicken. I didn't want to do that. And I also just didn't want to be hippy dippy and nature lover.
Do you get advised to write what you don't want?
No, that was just my thing because there's some things that I was kind of afraid of. And if it worked for Harry Potter, asking for a Gryffindor, I figured that might work for me as well.
It would work for you too. Again, these were things that were interesting because I always have notes, and that's what I was doing just before I jumped on. I
Oh,
was listening to
okay.
your stories again to make sure that I didn't ask anything that I knew you'd already said. Um,
Right.
okay, so we've got to Tuesday. Tuesday, you've had a full cup and a third. Things have choked you out. You've been sick.
Yeah.
Like, how long did this last for? And then, what was it like when you came out the other end?
Right. So there's this concept in ayahuasca which is called ego death. And apparently it's rare and apparently it's so like profound that everyone's trying to have an ego death now, which I don't think it should be the goal. It should just happen. But that's what happened to me. And I'm not saying that because I want to be cooler than everyone else as well. But an ego death usually means that you realize that all your views were wrong, that everything's connected. You either have a near death experience or you die, and then you get reborn from that. So once we were done with the controlling part, the whole choking and getting crushed by the vine still hasn't eased, and it went onto the judginess, and then I figured out the judginess thing, and after that I realized that how I've been viewing people has been preventing me from growth and preventing me from connecting people, and that's connecting with people, and that's worse for me, worse for the other person as well. And I've been just robbing everyone with kind of keeping a distance from people. And I realized that everything I did was kind of like wrong my whole life. I don't want to go into details because it's long and boring. And at this point was when I finally realized how much I messed up, that the whole choking sensation eased and it instead shifted into some visuals. And the whole week I didn't have many visuals, but this was the time when I saw yellow, bright, neuron shaped things. And I felt my neurons in my brain like rewiring, and it came with physical pain. And that was the shift from like processing all the bad stuff and going into and being like reborn, basically. And that's when I realized that if I messed up everything and there are so many things that I thought were true and aren't, then I don't even know what is right and what isn't, and who I am basically. So I had to recreate everything from the start in every major aspect of my life. I had to rethink guitar, training, food, people, individually the most influential people in my life, and so on. So I spent after that another like 3 hours recreating myself, I think, because I knew that this whole thing was like magic and everyone deserved experiencing what I experienced. But at the same time, I also knew what I wrote down, which is I don't want to be like these guys. I don't want to just move to the jungle and be a shaman, and be super hippy dippy. So how do I find the balance between providing help without being a shaman? And I realized that I'm actually quite lucky because I have a job that helps people, right? Just like you, unlike most other professions. And I should be more grateful for it. I should leverage it more. I should help my existing clients better, and I should try and help more people better. And I should just, in general, take on a helper role in society, helping my mom like I help her, helping Robin better, helping my kids in the future, helping my clients, and being a better friend to people in general. And I genuinely felt reborn after this. And I was just laying there, and because I couldn't move, and the whole thing came with a lot of purging, it meant that I just threw up everywhere, all over myself. So after recreating myself and thinking, this is my new life, what should my first word be? The result was, hey, Jeffrey, is it okay if I wash my vomit, the throw up from my clothes next morning? That was my first sentence after being reborn. And yeah, that was pretty much the full experience of the first day.
Okay, so was that Thursday that happened or Tuesday? Sorry.
That was still Tuesday.
Okay, so that's Tuesday. Right, we then go to Wednesday. Oh wait, actually, this is something I was just thinking about because you said you felt reborn. Am I right in saying that DMT they believe it's released in the brain when we are born and when we die? Is that a theory or is that what
I heard
happened?
about the dying thing, and I heard about something else. It gets released when you might have like some more spiritual experiences, but I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Like it's weird. I don't know enough about DMT itself. You know,
I'm
because
going to definitely
ayahuasca and,
send you.
and DMT are so different.
Yeah,
But yeah, I heard something. Okay, please.
I'll send you the London Real video, and if I can find that like Mother Ayahuasca documentary, that Mother Ayahuasca
Mm-hmm.
documentary actually has brilliant soundtrack. Like it's just unbelievable. Like it's honestly, I can remember like
Okay,
Shazam and every song on it. When I find them though, I'll send them both to you.
thank you.
I did honestly. Um, okay, so Wednesday day off, no ayahuasca. What are you doing?
Fortunately, I'm giving thanks to whoever's above that I don't have to do the same thing again that day, because it was hugely traumatic. And even though everyone found it beneficial, you're laughing, everyone found it beneficial, but we were so grateful that we didn't have to do it again. And every time, every night when we had to do it, we were terrified. Like, there's so much shit in here, and you're just scared to face it all, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And another thing is, I think if someone's thinking about trying it, everyone's better off trying it earlier in life rather than later, because our 64-year-old friend was facing very different stuff, you know? Like, he was throwing up all the time, purging a lot, getting rid of a lot of things. I didn't have a traumatic life, and I still managed to almost die from ayahuasca. Whereas him, you know, when you lived long enough that you had people around you die, divorce, trauma with like your own children. Like I can't imagine how much more stuff comes up at that point, you know? So getting back in there in that environment is always scary.
I just like. Do you know what? I'm loving hearing it, but it's one of those things that like I know I cannot relate to you because it's one of those things that I think you have to do to fully understand.
Yeah, and it's so wise of you to be able to say that, because it was the same for me before trying it. And I was just like, these people are crazy. Like, it cannot be as profound as they say. Like, it just all sounds a little bit too hippy dippy until you try it. Like, I'm the most skeptical person.
You are. You really are. That's why it amazes me.
Yeah. So
So
Wednesday
Thursday.
we had yeah, we had a day off. luckily they had a pool. We spent most of our time in the pool because that's where I showered actually as well, because we didn't have any hot water. So it's cold water shower in the hut. So I spent a lot of time in the pool instead, which was warmer than the shower itself. And then Thursday we went into it again. Let me just go with my notes. And because I couldn't move and I was throwing up, almost choking in it on the first occasion, I was terrified that I would have to go through the same thing on the second. So I only had half a cup instead of the 1.3 that I had the day before. And I was like, even if nothing happens again, I'll be very, very happy not to have to relive it.
So see,
I wanted to make sure that I could move.
so see when you're being sick, are you awake? Like, can you feel yourself being sick, or is it just happening and you're elsewhere?
No, you can feel it. You can feel it and you're awake. But at the same time, all these experiences lasted about 12 hours for me. So for everyone else, it was 4 to 6 hours. For me, it was always between 11 and 13, torture. And I was never really like tired or sleepy the following day, like emotionally exhausted. But I would wonder, I would be interested to see if like they put like a sleep monitor on someone on ayahuasca to see if like certain parts of your brain are sleeping or not. That would
Yeah.
be interesting. But otherwise, you're like you're mostly conscious. So that's why you have a bucket as well. I was the only person that didn't manage to hit the bucket. Everyone else, like you're conscious enough, and people go to the toilet because I said diarrhea is a form of purging as well. So people are running in and out the whole time. People are conscious, yeah. You might not always be in control, but you're always conscious.
Yeah. Okay, so Thursday we have half a cup. Can you talk us through what happened that evening?
Half a cup. Yeah, it kicked in much quicker than before. I threw up a little in the beginning, and then otherwise it was a much more mellow and therapeutic experience. So while the first one was just like getting killed and lessons being hammered into me, this time I was just like looking back at my past, realizing a theme. There was always a theme to every one of these experiences, and the theme for this was how basically alone I was always. And this is something I touched on with my therapist with before. That I was pretty unlucky because I had a best friend and then I changed school, and then my new best friend changed schools, and then my new best friend went to a different class, and then somehow I always managed to end up with all my friends going somewhere. Family members were a little bit weird. Our family is not very healthy either, so those disappeared as well. And eventually, I was not alone anymore, and I had a best friend. And with this best friend, we were always the smartest in class. And I realized that our mechanism for bonding was how much like smarter and better we were than other people. And this is where my judginess comes from. Uh, because it was a bonding mechanism between us and a way to facilitate me not being alone anymore, which is something I would have never, ever, ever realized without ayahuasca.
That's it's. I think it's crazy. I'm gonna totally
Mm.
throw you off here. Right. So you said before you were really judgy.
Yeah.
Okay. What did you think when you first met me down in Birmingham?
Why would I tell you? It's coming from a much worse person than I am.
I
Okay,
don't care.
listen. Third experience. Third experience. I realize, or the last experience, I realized that I'm also so judgy because I was never good enough. You know, my mom and I love each other a lot. I'm much closer to my mom than most people are to theirs, or like pretty much anyone I know. And we love each other. There's like our family is pretty much just the two of us. But there was always something that wasn't good enough. And my way of trying to justify that I was good enough was always measuring myself to other people. And how can I make that comparison feel better? By always looking for the worst in other people, right? So
Yeah.
when I met someone, I always focused on their negatives to make myself feel better, which is just disgusting to be honest. But again, I would have never realized this, and I was doing therapy for like 2 years, hypnotherapy. So it was pretty much that's a way of it's not like dangling
Yeah. Yeah.
a clock and oh you're falling asleep, but you're just like with closed eyes on the bed, and just like by listening to your therapist and having your eyes closed, it's a little bit easier to access the subconscious, and it was super effective for me. But again, doesn't come nearly as close to accessing things as with ayahuasca.
Okay. Since you're not going to tell me, then we'll move on. So right.
Yeah,
Half
I'm
a
not. I'm
cup.
not gonna tell you why.
I
Yeah.
don't mind. I know
Um,
that you've now moved on from it.
I
It
mind.
don't matter.
I mind. You know,
No,
I'm not proud of what I used to think. You know.
that's fine. That's fine. It's a
Yeah.
bit of an
So
uncomfortable.
I realized
You go.
also
You
it
go.
doesn't serve either of us. So yeah. Um, I realized the judginess thing. How we bonded over being judgy over other people, and yeah, that was pretty much the main lesson. And I also had a big lesson around Robin that people love. So whenever you take hallucinogens, and I hate calling ayahuasca a hallucinogen. I hate calling it a drug because I don't know. Hallucinogen, it's like a party drug. Oh, you want to see rainbows and shit and colors? Like it's more than that, or it's not only that. And I didn't see many visuals at all. But when you see visuals during consuming hallucinogens, often it's called sacred geometry because what you see is often very, very geometric shapes and very nice bright colors. And when my neurons were forming, I saw visuals, and this was the second time that I saw kind of like a Fibonacci spiral made up of triangles and going from like bright green to bright yellow gradient. And as I was seeing it, I realized that with my girlfriend Robin, I'm often very, very frustrated because I'm a type A person. Like, I'm an unbearable type A person, like, way too organized, way too anal. Whereas she is the opposite. She's more free, more, I don't know, flexible, forgetful, everything that comes with being less type A. All the bad of being more joyful and flexible, and all the good that being more joyful and flexible, and all the bad of being like more forgetful and having a harder time planning. And I was always frustrated that I couldn't plan with her. It was hard to like um, Peru, the whole thing I had to plan by myself. Weekend plans, anything that needed like a little bit of planning forward, she never managed. And as I was seeing the sacred geometry, I realized that I was the structure, the geometry part of it, and Robin is the color. Um, and the more I was trying to expect her to be structure, the less she would be color, the less she would like herself, the less she would be herself, and the less she would like me as well as a result. And I should realize that we are together a whole and we complement each other. And I should cherish her for being like joy in little things and randomness and life itself, which is
I love
the
that.
thing I wanted to get a tattoo of. So I think I will end up with a new tattoo throughout the whole experience, but I want something that represents everything. But this Fibonacci spiral might be it. I don't know.
Honestly,
And then after that, with
when you said that in your
go ahead.
Instagram stories, I remember like my eyes started stinging, and I was like, that is like the sweetest thing I think I've like ever heard. And I think it's beautifully poetic as well. Like you are the structure and she's the color. And the more that you try to put structure to color, it just makes it like one dimension or like one like it doesn't have that beautiful gradient like you're saying, like that
Mm-hmm.
flow that I honestly I don't know what it was about it, but I think I loved it. And I messaged you, I'm sure straight away
Oh,
saying
thank
like
you.
that is one of the
Yes.
nicest things I've ever like heard anybody say. And I think it's so like I honestly I love it. I genuinely love it. But
Oh, thank
keep
you.
going, sorry, I just wanted to tell you
No,
again.
no, thank you very much. And that's something that some of these realizations. So what I had to find by the end, what was a disappointment, is that I went to do ayahuasca expecting it to be like a quick fix, you know, like genuinely being reborn and oh, I'm a different person now. Everything that was good about me I kept, and everything that was bad got replaced with more good. Ta-da! But turns out it's not like that at all. And these realizations stay with you, but over time they're trying to like pull away, and you try to forget, and you try to just go back to what you were before. So there's a lot that you need to work on afterwards as well. But equally, some realizations are so profound or so traumatic that it's not very easy to forget. So what we actually have a new therapist now, and we will start working with her to try to integrate the whole experience and keep working on it and make it our own. And
Keep going, keep
then
going.
after the Robin realization, with the whole being alone theme, I realized that the guitar is a big part of it. And for those of you that don't know, I was in top 20 in Hungary in classical guitar for like 10 years. I did classical guitar for 15 years in total. So it was a major part of my life, and all my major successes were tied to that as well. But equally, guitar was my therapy, and all the crappy feelings, every like rejection and sadness and being alone and breakups and all the negative feelings I put into guitar for 15 years. And nowadays, I haven't played for ages because as soon as I picked up the guitar, I got depressed and I just never played. And I realized that I put so much emotion into my guitar that the guitar itself should go to therapy. And I had to decide whether I wanted this relationship to continue, whether it was just easier to give up or not. And after about like half an hour of debate, I decided that yeah, I would want it to be the part of my life, our household's life, my kids' life. I want to go like on a new adventure, and I want the guitar's help in raising kids as well. And exactly when I made this decision, after about an hour of the guitar thought process, one of the guys, actually the 64-year-old, brought the guitar to me and asked me to start playing it, which was insane timing. And again, it might be coincidence or it might be common consciousness, but it was insane timing. So that came with a bunch of crying as well. And yeah, I'm still afraid to pick up my guitar. I'm still afraid that it won't be as good as I expected, but hopefully I get there. And that was the end
I'm
of
sure.
the Thursday experience.
I'm sure you'll pick it up quick, man. And I look forward to seeing you playing it in your stories again. Because I remember not that long ago, or wasn't long after our last podcast, you put up a video, or it was just before you put up a video and you played, and it was
Yeah.
beautiful what you played then as well.
Oh, thanks.
So guitar. I'm doing like a timeline here, just so I can recap at the end. Okay, so then on the Friday, was there another ceremony then?
Yeah, unfortunately. After like being strangled to death and laying in your own vomit for 7 hours, you would expect that it can't get any worse. But Friday, which I didn't talk about on Instagram, was the worst one, I think, by the end, because I saw a decent amount of geometry and visuals in the beginning. It was like more mellow and just nice, like chilling, watching some visuals. And then suddenly I had to face every relationship in my life, all the relationships, not just like romantic, but friendships as well, that I messed up, that I didn't like treasure as much as I should have. Or people just kept coming and coming. And for about, I don't know, maybe 6 hours, I had to face those people, and I thought I would go crazy. And it just didn't stop at all, and there was no lesson to it. And I was trying so hard to find the lesson in it, to find the realization, to have the whole thing end, and it just didn't come at all. And I genuinely thought I would lose my mind. So there were two people that really stuck out. I decided that I would apologize to those two, because we were very close to each other, and I got a little bit weird. I wasn't like massively evil or anything. I didn't screw them over, but I got a little bit weird, and somehow the relationship fizzled out when it probably shouldn't have. And those two people I had to apologize to, not expecting anything. And then I realized that instead of seeing these people, I always saw my reflection in them. So I never saw the people for who they were. I instead always saw what my opinion was of them, which is not the same as who they are, right? And I always saw, like, basically your opinion of another person tells us more about you than about the other person. And I could never see them without judgment, and I never saw them for who they were. And when I realized that, there was a lot of purging, and I had to think about all the people in my life once again. And I realized that some people I've been a complete asshole with, and they still stuck around. Like, my Asian friend, the super lean one, Jimmy, who's always on my stories. He's like an angel. Like, again, I'm not as much of an asshole as it might sound like for people that I don't know, people that don't know me, but still, I could be a nicer person. And some people, regardless of me not always being a nice person, stick around. So I should take care of those people better. Some of my relationship are in the fizzling out category, especially with people back at home in Hungary, because I moved now 6 years ago, and time is just making it harder and harder to keep connecting with these people. But I should probably take better care of them, and I should just take better care of everyone around me and be a bit more social, probably, which comes very difficult to me, but I'll do a better job at it. And that was pretty much it by the end of the whole thing.
It's unbelievable. Like, I just think it sounds so crazy, and my imagination's wild anyway. But for like the people that are maybe not quite sure, when you're saying like you had to speak to all these people that you've had relationships with, Was this like a visual thing, or was this just like a thought process? Like when you're saying you've seen like a reflection of yourself, but it was these different relationships. Was this actually like almost felt like it was actually happening in front of you?
Not that much. It was just maybe it looked like a dream. Visually, it was like a dream, but at the same time, it was like looking back on an old memory. So the
Okay,
combination of the two.
that's crazy.
Well,
And right, so then
well,
Saturday you were off again.
fortunately, yeah. And we had to have like a buffer time. Like after we knew that after having all these experiences, we wouldn't want to come back to London, right? Which is so big and cold and soulless. So we decided to spend some time hiking and going around in Peru. And that's what we did. And it was amazing. We got really lucky with the weather. Lucky. Um, it was actually good planning. But it was amazing. But all the whole week of the Peru experience, I would trade for one more day of ayahuasca. I think it's so special.
It's crazy. And right, there's something in your stories that you're not really sharing with. So on the final night, when you said it was like the worst one, do you want to talk us through the purging and what was happening? I definitely want to round this up on like a positive, but I want people to understand like what you had to go through.
The last night.
I thought it was the last night when you were there, and you were having to sit on the toilet, and you had
Oh,
your head between your legs.
oh no, that was the first night. That was the first night. I
Oh, that
didn't
was
wanna didn't
okay.
want to talk about the purely traumatizing parts because people are already freaked out. But after I was strangled and everything, I finally came out of it. I finally was reborn, and I think for me, food kicks it back in. So once the ceremony ends, people bring like fruit and chamomile tea, and people are just like playing the guitar, chilling, chatting, singing, eating and drinking. And after the first experience, and after being reborn, I had some food, just a little bit of fruit. And I think it kicked it in for me again. And it was horrible because I was again immobile, but this time I felt diarrhea coming as well. Stop laughing, you asshole. I
I'm
felt diarrhea
sorry.
coming as well. So I went. So I went to the toilet with my bucket and I put down the bucket between my legs on the floor. And I was purging in every direction at the same time, but I was unable to move. I was at that point I was pretty scared because of the whole near death experience. So it was dark in the toilet, and I decided because it was dark that I was afraid, and so I kept the toilet door open. So people were just like passing me all the time with me being immobile on the toilet. And apparently I spent another, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 hours there. And by the time I could move again, my legs were completely immobile again because the blood circulation went out of it. So I couldn't stand up basically afterwards. And at that point, there was no lesson to it either. That's why I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want to discourage people. But there was no lesson to it. There was no realization. It was just fucking suffering. It was horrible. Yeah.
So like the thing that's like blowing my mind is like, see how you're describing it is like you could feel like the neurons in your brain like like reshaping themselves in some way.
Wired. Yeah.
I think it's insane that like nobody's said to you what you should do apart from, other than like follow your heart. Like it's like your brain's like how do I word this? It's like you've allowed your brain to figure things out for you as like a completely separate thing. Like your brain had this
Oh, that's
information and
the
knowledge. On you go.
that's the crazy thing that there's this saying that ayahuasca gives you what you need and not what you want, which is pretty scary. And for me, I think what I needed and what I wanted was the same thing because maybe because I'm a bit more self-aware and I knew what I needed to work on. But some of the guys there, especially the 64-year-old, was like he didn't want those things to come up, but they came up anyway. And it's like he said some kind of laser cyber knife that just like goes into your brain and finds the exact source of the problems, you know? And he was puzzled how this whole thing could happen and how the plant can find the issue. So it's a really interesting topic.
So
And just one more thing
I
to
don't
add.
go
Go on,
on.
go on, go on.
No, you go.
So how you were talking about like the neurons rewiring, it's really interesting because there are studies coming out that say that ayahuasca increases your brain's neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity means that how shapeable your brain is. So when you're a kid, you learn easier because your neuroplasticity is high. And as you age, it goes down. And basically, ayahuasca increases this neuroplasticity. So it makes it easier for you to learn new stuff and to change your thinking, which I think is interesting.
That is very interesting. And I'm going to have to get your address when we come off because I'm going to send you a book.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so, right, so this has been your experience. And I know that a lot of people will be like, right, I don't want that. I don't want to go through like near death. I don't want to get crushed. I don't want to get strangled. I don't want to have diarrhea. I don't want to be like
Weird.
realizing that I felt lonely. I've heard other stories of people go into like beautiful, colorful places and there's like elves and similar things happening and there's like a being or a human, like something like there's all this spiritually sort of idea of like this dreamland or this parallel universe, I think it gets called as well. Is there anything that you've kind of like read or heard about that stuff that you maybe expected to see or didn't, or maybe Robin experienced? Because I don't want to talk too much about your partner Robin's experience because I'm sure there's like private things, but like the visual stuff, like I've heard a lot of like nice visual things.
Yeah. So that's what a lot of people asked, whether Robin had the same experience as me. And my standard response is that while I was being crushed and choked to death by these vines, and someone else on the other end of the room spent eternal time in hell, losing his mind, Robin was seeing the Jamaican flag and rainbows and unicorns, and it made her so happy that I think this is her happiest experience ever. And she wanted to get a Jamaican flag tailed, because she's Jamaican flag tailed rainbow unicorn tattoo, which I'm so grateful for that she's not going for it.
Could you imagine?
No, I can't. I don't want to actually.
At least there's a brilliant story behind it.
Oh god, yeah, that's true. Yeah, way better story than most tattoos. Yeah.
Oh jeez.
And even the guy that was spending eternal time in hell, the following ceremony after that, he was seeing like how he described it. There was like a post box on the floor, and he put his head in it, and there was like a magic sacred geometric kingdom in there. Everything is blue with like aliens that were not watching him, but not watching him, and it was just like a friendly coexistence. And it was the most beautiful thing that he ever saw. And for example, just to say what the shamans contribute to these, he didn't know what to do with this whole thing, and the shaman was, I don't remember fully, but he was explaining how this kingdom itself is within him and he needs to like uncover it better or something like that. Anyway, it's weird. I don't think that if most people are presented with the downside being strangled to death, upside seeing unicorns, anyone would take the trade-off. So I have to emphasize that it might be me just getting lucky, but for me, however much I suffered, the M.a.N lesson and the teaching always outweighed it. And as I said, I would take much more of a harm, discomfort, whatever, to have these insights. So hugely beneficial despite throwing up.
Do you feel like I'm saying there, it's like your brain like figured these things out? Do you feel like it was your brain, or do you feel like it was the ayahuasca, like you're saying, like had this laser focus, it got to this point and it showed it to you? Or like, and I know that sounds mental, like that's like a insane thing to actually even come out of my mouth. Like, did a drug find psychological issues that you have, showed them to you, or gave you a representation of them? Or do you feel like it is just like it's your head?
I genuinely think everything's in your head, and I think what the drug does is it switches off the conscious that has been suppressing the subconscious. Because for Robin, she did the same therapy as me with the same therapist, Hypno, and it was not very successful for her. And now when she did ayahuasca, old memories that she really didn't ever remember, old traumas came back, which is, again, you're not reliving it to suffer, but to understand how those experiences that you don't even remember anymore are still affecting you. So for her, I think, again, The drug switches off the unconscious, sorry, switches off the conscious, so you can access your old memories and everything that you blocked out because it was too traumatic more efficiently.
Okay, okay. That's crazy. That's crazy. If like, so say you were just saying like a couple sentences how this experience has like changed you. You've said like the things that it's shown you, it's let you experience things. If you were saying a couple sentences how it's like changed the rest of your life, how would you describe that or say that?
Yeah. So let me just add one more thing to the subconscious versus conscious thing.
Yeah,
There's this quote from Carl Jung, which goes, wait a second, let me collect it. Unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will govern your life and you will call it fate.
I've heard that and I love it.
And this is, I think, the benefit of this whole thing. Right. Your question was, how did I change? I think it's too early to tell. Like the closer you are to the experience, the more you feel like your whole life changed. After the first day, I felt like I was a completely different person, and I'm sad to see that some traits are coming back. So I will have to keep fighting for it. But short-term benefits, I remember the color and structure thing very vividly. So I'm way more patient with Robin, and I'm not, things that used to annoy me don't annoy me anymore nearly as much. I'm more patient with people. I'm more open to just like connecting with people because I'm very introverted otherwise. And I don't know, I always feel like I'm annoying everyone. So I don't really talk to people because of that. And I connected with all those people that I haven't talked to for a while. So I picked up those friendships that were like kind of fizzling out. So that's definitely a benefit. And what else? And I got a lot of resources to work with afterwards in therapy that I didn't even know before. And now that I'm aware of them, I can change the narrative maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, that's I can't believe that's been an hour. Like I genuinely can't believe that's just been talking for an hour. Mate,
Sorry.
no, no, honestly, it's been unbelievable. I did have a bunch of questions there, but they freaking like as I was just started listening, and then I just like ignored myself. Do you think there's anything that like it's gonna like? Is there anything that happened that you're like directly going to impact the way that you coach or that you personal train?
I want to learn more. You know, there's always this battle between making more money by providing the same service and just niching down, you know, and helping certain people achieve certain things, or there's this battle in me anyway, or learning more and maybe not niching down, maybe not making as much money, but you can help different diversity of people with different sort of issues.
Yeah.
And one is better for money, one is better for being more helpful to more people, right? And I think I'm more drawn to the second one now. That's the main thing. The second thing is I think I'm more empathetic with clients now. Again, just for seeing who they are as opposed to me judging them through my own biases and through my coaching lens and through just like the approach I picked up from my previous workplaces, which is just like whatever the cost, you have to hammer out a result from the client, you know? Maybe being more empathetic will be a good thing. Maybe not, because maybe I should actually hammer the results out of them. We'll see about that.
Actually, that's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. And I don't know if you want to talk about this because it's been like, let's talk about it quickly, right? So this is, I think there's like 3 different ways to coach. And I know there's like a million different ways to coach, but I think there's like 3 pillars. There's one, you say like, do what I say, end of.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's then like, you have a process or a system that you wholeheartedly believe will work or does work repeatedly, that you then like it would work for someone that could find a niche. And then I think there's also people that what they do is they're able to coach each individual for what that individual requires. So instead of saying like, look, if you just eat a calorie deficit, hit steps, weight train, that'll work for everybody. But that doesn't really fit into everybody's life, so you would have to manipulate or adapt it. And like you're saying there, like, do you then go back to one of the first 2 people and just beat it into people? Or do you become a better coach and learn more about each individual person? And I've been thinking about that a lot recently.
But I think you're a good coach when you can distinguish which one to do it, which one to do. No?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's,
Because
I
some
feel
people,
like,
I genuinely, yeah,
no, on you go.
I genuinely believe some people need the hammering in, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And I do,
for most people, it will be the generic, tailoring it to them. Go
yeah,
on.
yeah. Because I do think as well, and this is like maybe another topic we can, pardon me, come and talk about again. This is just for everybody listening. We've spoke about the ayahuasca stuff. We'll probably move on from now, and we'll probably round things up. But this is just me having a conversation with a coach now. I feel like just now in like the fitness industry, what a lot of people are trying to do is we're trying to mold healthy to what's now normal, and normal is unhealthy. Like, and I'll give you a couple examples.
What do you mean by that? Yeah.
So, like empathy. Everyone's always talking about empathy. But there then has to come a point as a coach, you are there to get someone to do something that they're probably not willing to do on their own. So there comes a point as well of people being like, "Oh, but I really don't want to. I don't think I can do this." I think there has to come a point where you're like, "Right, I'm going to be brutally honest, a bit of tough love. If you don't do this, you're not going to get the results that you want." I also see things like people saying, like, right, calories. As long as you're in a calorie deficit, you'll lose body fat. So here's my macaroni cheese recipe. You'll know yourself that, like, being in a calorie deficit for a prolonged period of time to achieve the results that people want to achieve, eating a tiny little portion of macaroni cheese is not going to satisfy you, and it's not going to help, and it's also not that nutritionally valuable. And a big issue with the world just now is with obesity going up and up and up and up is the readily available low nutrition food, high calorie. Like I'm saying, so I feel like the fitness industry is now trying to mold to be like too good to be true.
Because they have to sell it somehow, right?
Exactly. It's more about marketing. And I guess this is coming back to that topic that you're saying about, like, do you learn more about either a niche market or just learn more? Or do you get better at marketing and push your business?
Yeah. And to just give to your too good to be true example, I can't tell you how much I fucking hate those Instagram bios, which is every other Instagram influencer's bio, which is I help you lose between 3 and 5 kilos without giving up your daily pizza and wine. Fuck off, you
Yeah.
don't.
No, you don't. Unless you're getting them to fast all day.
Exactly. But again, at that point, you're sacrificing health. And that's another question, another topic. How much are you willing to get what the client wants and sacrifice their health for it? You know? Because I have these females that are like, tiny, 40, 45 kilos, 50 kilos. They're reasonably lean, but they're not willing to not drink. And if you want to get them leaner, they want to be like shredded. If you want to get them shredded, but they're not willing to give up the alcohol, what can you do? You can cut out all their actual food. They will get leaner. Now all the calories are coming from alcohol, but at the same time, you fucked up their health completely.
Yeah.
And these are the things, for example, that I was forced to do in my previous jobs, whereas now I'm just not willing to do it. And I'm more willing for the client to be unhappy with maybe the result, maybe even get rid of me, but I'm not going to be the one that their hair falls out from or they lose their period from because I give them the tips on how to do it.
Yeah. That's another topic. I think what we do is I think we plan in another one. And what we talk about is we talk about our own coaching, things that we see are issues just now, stuff that we're maybe even just learning ourselves. Like, I think we definitely jump on again and we talk about coaching, about issues that we're seeing in the fitness industry. I think but this is one of the biggest issues I think in the fitness industry is the internal battles. The amount of people that won't say, like, look, I don't think I can work with you, but David here, I think he'd be a great coach for you. I don't think that happens enough. And I think there's too much like bitching, as in like, we're talking about things that we've seen, but we're not talking directly about, oh, that coach is crap because they do this. And I think that's like the biggest thing. We should all be trying to like help one another because we've all got the common goal of we want to help people.
Too many conflicting interests.
Yeah.
Towards each other, within everyone,
Big time. Right, David, we're going to wrap this up. We'll wrap this podcast up. We'll have a little chat before you go, and then we'll arrange another podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing about your journey.
Thank you very much for having here.
It's honestly, it's my pleasure, man. Honestly, I've loved hearing about it. It's spurred me on to maybe looking at it a bit more. But as I said, I don't know. Right, David, thank you so much. That has been an amazing story. Fantastic to hear.
Thank you.
I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll speak to you soon, man.